Carl here from Metal Wani, and I'm excited to be sitting here with the woman who has provided 15 years of her immense vocal talents to the music of symphonic metal masters Epica. I am, of course, talking about the brilliant Simone Simons. Simone, thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction.
So just to get started, I would love to talk a little bit about some of the momentous occasions you've already had this year with Epica. Just to put the first half of 2018 into perspective, I was with you guys this year when you played Dublin, which was your first show here, and also became your 60th country to play in. And this just took place a couple of days before your 1000th show together as a band. So of course, I'm excited to ask you about the one I wasn't at, which is your highly anticipated 1000th show. How was that experience for you?
It was kind of weird to think, that we've had played so many shows already, but also not a big surprise because we've been touring nonstop, and we actually already had like our 1000th show in October last year, but this was like the celebration of having played that many shows. That was not at the actual 1000th show for us to play. But we wanted to do it at the venue where it all started, 013, where we had a very first show supporting Anathema, and we were all so super nervous, and back then we had no idea where we would be in the far future. I was still in high school. I thought, I might study and might get my stuff and shit together. And then I ended up in a metal band, and that's like my main profession, and we're doing well. We can all support our families by doing what we love, playing in a metal band, and we consider ourselves lucky because not many musicians can do this,
Of course, and one of the other things you've announced this year that also reflects on the legacy of Epica is a book entitled The Essence of Epica, which chronicles the band's 15 years career with interviews, never before seen photos, and much more. And I'm sure I speak for many when I say there's a great excitement surrounding this book, so I'm curious as to what the genesis of it was. How did this book come to fruition?
Last year, I think the summer season, the festival season, our manager said that, asked us if we would be interested in doing a book like this, and he brought the book from Opeth with him for us to have a look at, in order to see, is it good quality, is it not just like, if it's professional.
Of course.
I took the book home with me because I'm also an Opeth fan. I was like, yes, this book is mine. And I thought we did a book back in the day when we were just still a young band, The Road to Paradiso, which was kind of a clusterfuck because we did the Paradiso show. We recorded it to be a DVD, and then our record company went bankrupt, and the DVD was never released. And we will probably never release it because it's so, it's not, how do you say, it doesn't represent the band nowadays anymore. So we had this book called Road to Paradiso, and then the show from the Paradiso, the DVD, never saw the light of day. And we've gathered quite some cool, some funny, some sad, some crazy stories over the past almost 17 years now. Mm-hmm. Or 16 years, 2002. April 2002, that's when Epica Sahardas was founded, and I joined in October 2002. So and all of us have stored different memories, because sometimes Mark, he can tell like, oh yeah, I remember this venue and this guy did that, and I was like, shit, do I have a lot of headbanging damage, because I don't recall any of that. But sometimes when he comes up with stories like that, then with me the light goes on in the basement in my head, and I'm like, yes, I remember, and then it's cool to dig up those stories and put them in a book, because the fans love everything behind the scenes. They, of course we show quite some stuff on social media, but we definitely still have some treasures buried in our boxes in the basement, and I have some stuff I found a couple of days ago because I'm cleaning up my house, and I thought, oh, this is going to be perfect for the book. and of course we're going to go really in depth about many things, and it's going to be honest, no political correct answers or sugarcoating anything. It's going to be really raw and real.
That's amazing. So it sounds like fans can look forward to a very raw, real and personal Epica account. That's really cool. And another cool thing you guys have coming up is your Attack on Titan EP, which, correct me if I'm mistaken, is an EP that you already released in Japan, of you guys having rewritten theme songs to the anime Attack on Titan. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It was released, was it released in January? Or that's when we did the one-off show in Tokyo earlier this year. And we recorded it last year. And we were rewriting the songs when we were on tour in Latin America, overlooking the square in Colombia where we were playing, and I was rewriting the lyrics for If Inside Walls Was a House. We were given very basic English translations of the Japanese lyrics, and we had to rewrite it completely because it was a very direct one-on-one translation, and it didn't fit the vocal lines anymore. And the flow has to be correct, the emphasis on the right syllables, and it also has to be, when you're writing lyrics for either type of vocals, it needs to be easily pronounced. Sometimes you have these tongue twisters, so we kind of had to start from scratch, but we all knew the big lines of the story. We knew the theme of the song. And of course, from the translation, we could derive what was the gist of the story. And then we were given almost full freedom to rewrite the lyrics. We had to send them in for approval. The same with when we were finished arranging the songs, but everything was approved. We were lucky because the composer from these songs, from Link to Horizon, he is an Epica fan, and he was the one that wanted us to do the cover versions, which was an honor for us because, I could also name a couple of other bands that could have been a really great option as well, but they chose us. So, and we thought we were up for a challenge, get a little bit out of the comfort zone, and I enjoyed writing and recording the songs. It was, even though it does sound a lot like Epica, it was still very different compared to Epica, but we didn't put any less work or effort in it than we would do for a normal Epica CD.
Of course, and I think this is reflected because I've been keeping up to date with the video logs that are building up to its release, and one of the things I thought was very cool is how you approached Attack of the Titan similarly to the Holographic Principle, and by that I mean the orchestration is all organic with real musicians playing the music as opposed to synth sounds, and not every band is necessarily fortunate enough to do this, and some who even can choose not to. But for you, is it something that you consider important to do when you find yourself in a position to be able to?
Yeah, because it's a really awesome thing if you're able to do this, if you have the budget, and it's choir and orchestra has been a part of Epica, but we've done a mixture of samples and real orchestrations, and ever since we've been working with Joost, he has great contacts. He's working with a vast amount of very talented musicians, and he can, he's up to do the job, and I guess that makes it a little bit easier to do, and of course having the cash to do so as well. But they don't work for free. They gotta buy bread and butter as well. So.
Of course. And when we're talking about the authenticity of rock and metal, or even symphonic metal explicitly, there can sometimes seem to be a shortage of artists keeping it fresh in the way that you guys are, and I've spoken to other artists about this, and there's usually a feeling that there aren't nearly as many forward thinkers as there once was, that much of today is kind of recycled and reimagined versions of work from the architects of the style, and our culture is supposedly in love with its own history and gets monikered as retro Romania. So I'm wondering, Simone, if you agree with this. Do you think our rock and metal cultures have an addiction to their own past? Is it kind of being done again?
Well, that's a little bit this topic of where do you get your inspiration from, and people are influencing each other consciously, unconsciously. So it is in a way kind of a circle where we are recreating each other's art. But I think it also is very important, especially when Epica, we have 6 people in a band, we all write music and lyrics, and it's different than when you put everybody together to create something than if just one person would write it all. And with the arrival of 3 new band members over the course of 10 years now, means new composers. Therefore, we've been kind of reinventing ourselves, working with new producer. But of course, I also sometimes there's albums that I wish, or songs that I wish we didn't write, but we wrote them anyway. But we wrote them to learn from them and to become better writers, and learn from our mistakes and improve. That's something we strive for with each record, to improve wherever we can and add new little funny elements without betraying the typical Epica sound. And we're all evolving as humans, as artists, as instrumentalists, as vocalists, as lyric writers. We all kind of grew up with the music. We started when we were super young, and now we're all starting families. We got married, and we're starting, to take things seriously.
And I suppose when we consider the current state of rock and metal, and and we look at its future, is it a future you're confident or concerned for, Simone?
Well, it's difficult. The music scene, the metal will always be the underdog, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, of course.
Music has become digital. Everything is, the value of music and art in general, ever since the internet came, decreased immensely because you can just access it. It's lost its special touch, like going to the record store, holding the CDs, playing them before you buy them. I remember the record shop. I bought my records at my hometown, and I saw those magazines up in the stands, and with Silverchair on the cover, and I had a crush on the singer. I was 12 or 13. I never imagined that I would be on the cover of those magazines as well. But back then there was no internet. It was just the magazines. It was the CD shops, and the CD shops have vanished. There's a lot of online magazines. No disrespect, but it's very it's just. You could just. I have a Spotify account. I finally caved in. I was like, I'm not going to do it. And then my husband got us a family account. And it's just it's become super convenient. But the work behind creating the music is still kind of the same process. It still takes the same amount of time, the same amount of blood, sweat, and tears, which can be downloaded in a couple of seconds or streamed within a second. That's a little bit the harsh reality of it all. But on the other side, Epica started when the internet was rising. We first had we didn't have a website, but we had a forum where everybody could just write and communicate. And I think Epica was one of the last metal bands that was on the rise before the internet took over, so that we were able to get a good record deal, to come up with great productions. We were young, we didn't have a lot of money on our own. We didn't have to pay any bills, so we could tour, we could come up with a really great production already, and that helped us be where we are now, because I see a lot of other small bands struggling that have to have other jobs on the side. They can't tour much. They have to do crowdfunding and all that stuff. I see it more and more, and it has a plus side, of course, but it's also, I don't know, I feel a little bit sad, or I don't know, I don't like that it's come to this,
Of course. And you touched on something there which I found interesting, which is where you said when you found yourself on the cover of these magazines, which sparked something in me that some people consider potentially contentious subject matter, and that's that term women in metal or female fronted metal. But the simple fact is that metal is not monolithic, it's loved and made up of everyone. But that term, there's a divide in it, because some feel that it's a derogatory term and everything should be under the one umbrella, while others feel that it is empowering and it's a banner for an important movement within the genre. And if you'd be so kind, I'd love to get your take on this. Do you consider it an empowering term, or does it inflict restrictions?
I would say the latter, because in the beginning, 15 years back, female fronted metal would be the description of how the band would sound like. It would automatically mean operatic vocals and kind of symphonic touch to it. But now there are so many amazing female singers in the metal genre, but they are not playing in a symphonic metal band. There are so many different styles of metal bands with a female singer. So just saying female fronted metal doesn't say anything about how the band sounds like nowadays. So I think that term is outdated, and there are so many amazing bands with female singers. And nowadays you also wouldn't say that's a male fronted metal band, because that was normal back in the day.
Yeah.
I think it's outdated. I don't think it's disrespectful, but it's just saying that there's a female in the band. It's not saying what kind of style metal band is. And I'm also not a big fan of naming the genre, because Epica has many different influences. The main influences, of course, as movie soundtracks, but it has some death metal, it has progressive metal, there's a lot of different styles woven into our music, but but I don't feel like female fronted metal that it's trying to be diminishing the band, or being anti women or anything. I've always felt very comfortable in the male dominated world. I prefer working with men than with women, because men are very straightforward. Plus, I can totally win in the dirty jokes corner, so I can stand my ground.
Brilliant. And finally, Simone, I won't keep you too much longer. When you were last here in Dublin and I spoke with Mark, he was saying that you guys would be taking a break after touring, and would be probably he himself anyway would be getting down to writing some new Epica music. And I was wondering, is that something that you have started work on yourself, or how's that process going so far?
Well, we've been touring and writing EPs, recording EPs, doing cover versions, doing special versions of Beyond the Matrix with the Metropolitan Orchestra. We have families. It's like the days don't have enough hours, and I'm looking forward to, gather inspiration. I get a lot of inspiration from watching movies, and if I hear a cool line, or I just write it down, and I wait until the guys have some music, and then I can start writing lyrics. But we're all pretty, not burned out, but we're all really ready for a little break, and don't want to think too much about writing the next record. But we know that eventually the creative juices start flowing, and will be productive. But we want to come up with a great quality product, and we all think we've deserved a little break after working our arses off for so long.
There's a little Irish in you there, in that accent there. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. The very best of luck with everything you have in 2018 and beyond. And we look forward to having you back over here in Dublin sooner rather than later, I hope.
Yeah, I definitely had a great time in Dublin. We finally made it, and hope that we'll be going there again for the next run.